March 27, 2023. This is the S&P 500 2000 tick chart of the E-Futures Mini on the Thinkorswim platform. You can go down to the descriptions below the video to see where timestamps where I took my trades and where I thought I saw setups, whether they're good setups or not, just kind of where I saw them, as well as some notes that I have for myself. Mainly, it was a very low volume day today. The volatility was really, really small. Not small, but it was very, I guess what you say, pretty sedated today. Prices kind of traded within this big trading range, and this is how I marked up my chart. I took a total of 3 trades today, and all 3 were profitable. But let me just get rid of them real quick. So this is a big trading range that I kind of discovered early on or set out, which is at the top and the bottom of the pre-market. But they weren't too useful because the top does get confirmed once, but price never came back to it. It's the same thing on the bottom. It only really touched once. So I had to pretty much draw these intermediate trading ranges as well as trend channels to see where prices were going. And as you can see, it was really, really choppy. I didn't see too many good high probability setups today. I mean, on a choppy day like this, yes, there are a bunch of, second entries, but the second entries might be low probability. It just happens to be a second entry. So to take any of those trades is just kind of putting your money at risk. So I didn't want to do that. I only kind of took 3 trades that I thought or I had confidence in. Now, whether I read the chart price action correctly or not, that's debatable, but that's where I saw them. So I'm going to go into the trades right now. Oh, this is what I would, I guess, call an M type structure, which is just something I made up, just in my own notes, just so I know when I see an M type structure, it just essentially rallied, sold off, and rallied and sold off again. So in the pre-market, prices were just kind of choppy. Yes, there is a trading range from here to here. I didn't bother drawing it just because later it breaks out and creates this larger trading range. And right before the open, it was consolidating and having some congestion. And that's kind of what I saw. Then the market opened. Prices kind of broke down, went up. As I said, there are quite a bunch of second entries because you could say, okay, I'm going to do my count here first is the new high, first entry long, second entry long. But there's all kinds of reasons why this isn't the best setup. Yes, it is above the EMA. It's a pretty bad signal bar. But these type of setups, they just happen throughout the day just because, not this specifically, but just second entries happen throughout the day, whether you're trying to go long or short, but they didn't set up quite right for one reason or another. So I didn't bother marking the chart. I did identify them, and I only identified the ones, I guess, that were worth mentioning, at least in my mind. So prices continue going down. You can say there's a new high, first entry long, second entry long. If you took a long here, this is a pretty terrible signal bar, and right here is where it makes a second entry long. Technically, I guess you could say there's enough room to move back to the EMA. But the EMA is flattening out, so I saw that, but I didn't want to mark it or think it was a worthwhile trade. I just wanted to wait for something better to set up. And I do see something here. So I count this as a new low. So first entry short, second entry short. I had this descending trend channel right here, and then here, I didn't have my consolidating trading range yet, but I did see a potential at the time for something like this. And then I saw, well, it could be a spike, and then it kind of goes into this channel, and then later I did draw it down to here, when this confirmed later. But at the time, when I just saw this, I thought, well, prices they did touch the top of this trading range, this big one. And I thought, okay, there's enough room not only to the midline, but also all the way back down to here, ideally. So I thought this is a pretty strong signal bar. It's 2 pretty clean legs up. And there's also first entry long, second entry long failure. So I thought, okay, it's a second entry long failure, potentially. It hasn't triggered a failure yet, but it's also first entry short, second entry short. And second entry short really hasn't triggered yet either. It's on the next candle. But I thought it was a worthwhile trade because I have 2 things going for me. Potentially a second entry short and a failed second entry long. So I put my trade 1 tick below. And I was able to get filled, and I also got a little bit off the runner, but not too much. So that was kind of a cool, beginning trade. And then prices continue chopping, and then I draw this at this point. Well, when this showed up, I drew it here, and I said, okay, it's confirming a third time. I'm not exactly sure where the top is. It could actually be a little bit lower right here, but I just kind of kept it up here for now. Prices continue moving. So up here confirms the top. So then I said, okay, I'm definitely in a trading range now. Even though EMA is kind of getting bearish, I didn't see a good setup here. You could say this is a new low, first entry short, second entry short. I saw that, and when this closed, I was a little iffy, this big red candle, because I said there's not that much room left to get down to the bottom of the trading range. And then when this one formed, I knew I was too late, because this wasn't even a good signal bar to take a short on. So it's kind of a missed trade, but I wasn't too bad about it because it didn't form quite right to, get me to jump in on that entry. Price continue moving, goes above the EMA. I start drawing this resistance line cutting through the top, and then I arbitrarily created a bottom one here. So I thought, okay, I might have a trend channel right here. I also did draw this. Well, this is from earlier before, and I'm seeing if there's going to be potentially two key entry points to help me, because there's this line here and this one here. But unfortunately, nothing really quite sets up. So I'm just sitting on my hands. Keeps moving down. Right now, it's pretty far from the EMA, so I'm only looking for potential short entries, nothing long yet. It breaks out of this trend channel, but it breaks out once, goes back in, breaks out a second time, goes back in, breaks out a third time. So I did see this as a new low, first entry short. There's a second entry short, and granted, when this was forming, I was wondering if it's going to touch and bounce off this EMA, and it does on the next candle. But when I see this candle and I see it close, I already knew it's too late for me to take a trade, because maybe I could put an entry here and maybe the candle right after this guy will come up, pick me up, and then continue down. But what I don't like is, even though this is trending down bearish, it is kind of hit a resistance here, or support, excuse me. So, I don't like that there's only this much more room that I would have confidence in of potentially a move down. Maybe if this candle closed up higher, then I would be, oh, okay, on the candle after this red one, I'd have an entry. But this one is already a very strong move down. As you can see, it would make you sweat it out for sure right here. So I'm just watching this unfold, and I'm glad I didn't take the trade. And here, most likely, you would have gotten your scalp. But as I said, I wasn't too keen on this setup in the first place, so it was okay to just kind of watch this pass by. Prices continue moving. I did see two clean legs up. First entry short, second entry short. This wasn't a good signal bar, and it confirmed this trend channel a third time now. So it is confirming a third time. So when this formed, at the time, you don't know if it's going to break through, because it could be a first entry short, second entry short, which occurs right here, officially a second entry short. But now it's touching the EMA. It's also touching the top of this trading range. So I don't know if this is support, because it was resistance before. So is this going to end up being a failed second entry short? I don't know. So I just kind of sat on my hands and waited. The prices moved down. So it ends up being a true second entry short. Comes crashing down through. Prices continue moving down. And then here, this trend channel doesn't fit as well. So I actually drew this bottom support, and I wasn't sure where the top was. So I just put it at the top here. It's actually a little bit higher, but later I dragged it down, because you're going to see it makes better confirmation later. But at the time, I was only able to play off of one support line, one trend support, which I wasn't 200% sure of either. But it is kind of balancing out. In other words, the downtrend, bearish downtrend, is kind of tapering off. It looks like it might start to reverse, but you don't know at the time, because earlier on you saw at the end of the day it kind of turns into a big M. So this is kind of the middle of the M as it comes back up. Comes up, it touches, so I'm wondering, oh, okay, that's definitely a second confirmation if prices continue moving down. It does, and now it was getting squished by the EMA. I didn't see any good entries there. This is my third confirmation. So now I'm very confident that this is a channel here, because I got 1, 2, 3 touches, and I also had 1, 2, and a third touch confirmed before this top one. So I only knew at the time that this was a pretty decent support, and now I know I'm in a trend channel, a bearish trend channel. But I don't see any good setups yet. You could say this is a new high, first entry long right here, and then second entry long right here. I also considered, after the fact though, that if you group this together and you look at it a bigger visual, this could be a first entry long, pull back a second entry long. Then you could say this is a decent signal bar, but I didn't see it that way, at least in real time. So this kind of went right by me, and I'm okay with that, because I don't know if I would have, I also would have been questioning if I'm being a little too aggressive. And then I did draw this trading range, but this trading range was kind of evolved over time because I actually had it cut up higher, and then I also had it pretty much where it is now at the top. But I didn't have it at the time, or I didn't have a firm belief in that trading range yet. Price actually continues moving. You can say there's a new low, first entry short, second entry short. It's a decent second entry short signal bar, but I wasn't sure because, again, I wasn't sure if this trading range, even though I had it cut here and right here, I wasn't 100% sure what I was looking at. If it had closed or this was less of a stem here, because I'd have to take the entry. I personally would have taken the entry down here. Most people might have taken it a little bit higher to try to get a little bit less risk by having the price come back up for you. But I was just kind of looking at it here as like 411, and down here is about 409 or 409.50. So you have about 6 ticks. So I wasn't too keen on knowing if I had enough room to get out or if it bounced early off the EMA or would it actually make it down to the midline. So I definitely just let that trade go. Prices continue moving around. Saw one leg down. I did see this because I had this established because when this one touched here, that's what I said. I'm going to draw the touches here, and then depending on how you counted it, it could be the fourth or third touch, because you could have said this is one touch, two touch, three, and then I counted this as four, or you could just say this is my beginning count, like 1, 2, group this together, 3, so I guess it'd still be 4. So in this form, I think that I might have missed a trade right here, because I saw a failed breakout, because I actually had it slightly lower, and I said, oh, it's a failed breakout plus a second entry short. It's a little congested here, though, because you see a new low here, because this one is actually lower than this one, because you can say there's a new low, first entry short, second entry short, and then there's actually another new low right here. You can say it's first entry short, second entry short. Now, I didn't really take this trade because it is a very nice signal bar, but it also was like a really strong push up. So when it pushed all the way up, it didn't even break down below. So it's actually inside this bullish bar. So it made me a little bit unsure because I know you can't trust inside bars as much because you really don't know, because the bears in this case didn't have enough power to push through, and the bulls didn't have enough power to push up. So you're not really sure what's going to happen in here. At least in my experience level, I wasn't sure, so I left it alone. Prices continue moving down, and I do see a second entry long here. So I do see, like, from here is a new high, first entry long, second entry long, and when this occurred after the fact, though, I drew, there's a sub overlapping trading range, which I kind of had connecting down here and here. Had I seen this or thought about it earlier, I might have actually taken this trade as a long because it is a pretty decent signal bar. And it would be at the bottom of this trading range and move all the way back up. But I, didn't recognize all that in real time. So definitely left it alone. I was okay with it. This is where I do take a new trade, a second trade of the day. It's a new low, first entry short, second entry short. Now, when this formed, I said, okay, if it comes back down to here, it might be a failed breakout and come all the way back in. And I will admit this trade setup was a little bit aggressive, because when it came down here, I said, okay, it's definitely a second entry short, confirmed, but I think it's going to fail because it's forming above the EMA. Prices are kind of turning around now, because before it was just kind of chopping and making a bearish move down. But now I just noticed that prices are spending a little more time making their way up, and it seems to be breaking out of this trading range. So here it came down, the trading range, this top line acted as a support. So I'll admit that this particular trade is a little bit aggressive because it is far from the EMA. If it came down, touched, and bounced off, I'd feel better about it. But it is outside of this trading range. So I also saw that this from down here up, and I kind of drew a second one here. I'm looking for a potential measured move to complete, but I also considered that this is a shortened trend channel. It broke out, already made a new high, it's coming down, and it could potentially make another leg down. But I saw, okay, it broke out, made one move up. I'm thinking at the time that it might make another move up. So I did take this trade. Ends up working. I didn't get filled yet, so I'm sitting through this chop. My stop is actually one tick below here, and I was surprised that when this candle came down, it just touched where I would have stopped out, but it immediately reversed, so I was very lucky. But I also saw there's a new high first entry long and a potentially second entry long, so there's a potential second chance to get in on this trade because it's a pretty good signal bar. It's at the top of this trading range again, and the trading range is holding. So, it is closer to the EMA now, and the EMA is kind of showing its support by trending up. So this is like a potential second entry, not second entry, a second chance to enter if you are bullish bias. And as I said, I was very surprised that I didn't get taken out here. Price moved up, and then you can also get a higher low. So it's already like a first entry long, second entry long, a higher low. You also have a first entry short, second entry short failure, and a higher low. So, but I wouldn't be as confident taking this one now, because this is confirming these two other setups. But it feels like it's already coming up close to this measured move. So if you weren't on the trade already, I don't know if I would have entered on this one to try to initiate a trade. Turns out it worked. I was able to get a profit and a small little runner off of it. Prices continue coming down. I draw this, and I see 1, 2, 3 touches, and I just drew it at the top. I guess you could count it as 1 or 2, but it cuts through. I treated this as an overshoot. Then prices continue moving. It touched it a third time now. So now I'm very confident that this is a trend channel right here because I got 3 touches at the top, 3 touches at the bottom. I liked what I saw. Prices continue moving up. It breaks out. I do see a second entry short, but I didn't like. Okay, so there's a new low, first entry short right here technically. It doesn't make a second entry short till here. And this is a pretty good signal bar. It breaks out of this trend channel. And I thought, okay, it certainly made, it broke out of this the shortened trend channel. It broke out, closed outside, and did make a new high. So I thought, okay, this could be, an overshoot of this larger channel, and it could be breaking back into it. And it did look like this measure move has been completed now, but I wasn't ready mentally to take this trade. So I did see that it was a potential move all the way back down. So I think this I would consider a possible trade that I just happened to have missed out on. And I just kind of sat, watched prices come in. I do see a lower high now, and this is a second chance for me to enter. But when I saw this, I think I was just checked out because this is first entry short, second entry short, and a lower high confirming that this is confirming the second entry short. The one thing that was holding me back, it is counter trend to this current bullish move up, because for sure I would think that this bearish move down has played out now, and now it's moving its way back up. So if I didn't enter on this was another opportunity to enter. Unfortunately, I didn't take it. As you can see, it would have chopped around, and it would have probably stopped me out, because depending on if I was going after 2 points or 1 point, you would have either gotten filled here, and if you didn't, you would have gotten taken out here. So I think these two setups may have been possible trades, and if I took them and I lost, I think I would have been probably okay with it, other than the fact that it was counter trend. But the setup looked, at least to me, maybe clean enough for a quick scalp. But then I had to be conservative with my scalp and just go for like 6 ticks or 1.5 points just to cover the cost of commissions. Prices continue moving down. I see a failed second entry long because I took the top from here. So I don't have a first entry long until I get here. Comes down. I see a second entry long there, and I thought, okay, this is probably a second entry long failure. But it's coming right up to the midline of here. And so it gave me a little bit of pause, wondering, okay, it's a good signal bar. It closed below the EMA, but the EMA is kind of flattening out right now. And I'm counter trend right now because it is going up. There's an overshoot. When it overshoots this way, the danger is if you find a second entry long that you want to take, because it might continue going down. So this is like a potential trade I just didn't take just because I wasn't sure if I was going to get running into this midline. And on top of that, I saw a trading range here. See this dotted line? That's where I originally had the top of it. Then I actually drew it up to here later. But the problem being is also it seemed to have consolidated and bounced off of this support right here. So that was my main concern, if there was enough room to actually get a good enough scalp. Because even though if there's enough room, it doesn't mean it can't bounce earlier. So I just didn't feel comfortable with that setup. But I could see it potentially being a, if I was more aggressive, a setup to take. So prices continue moving. This is where I take my third and final trade. It is very late in the day now. And if you look at the price action, I'll show you in a bit. But like I said, I saw this as a new high, first entry long, second entry long. I like the looks of this signal bar. And on top of that, it made two clear legs down on this measure move. So this one measure move, second measure move, but I also like this one leg down, a second leg down. So I thought, okay, the downtrend here seems like it might have played out because as overshoot, it broke out to this side. And when this candle formed, it looks like bulls are coming back in and it closed pretty bullish. So I said, okay, there's also enough room to the EMA. And so I thought, okay, there's probably a trade here. Granted, it is after 12:30 Pacific Standard. So there's only less than 30 minutes left. So I thought I'm going to take a trade just to see. It ends up working. I did have to sit through this chop for a little bit. And I didn't get a runner though. So it took my profit core and then it bounced off this EMA and came back down. But it was all right. I thought it was all right to at least get the scalp just to see if the trade would have worked out because the runners are always just bonuses. And then prices continue moving down, and of course here is just going into the last part of the day. But if we just do a quick comparison, you can see how long the day was here. This is a full day of trading, and then this is on Friday. So you can already tell there's already less volatility because if you look at how the length of day of today, which is represented by this yellow bar, like Friday was almost double, at least 1.5, times as much. And then if you look at the Thursday before, it's definitely double. So there's way more volume happening the last two previous days. And so just for myself, knowing like, okay, today is kind of a slow day, don't push anything. I'm happy with the three trades that I made. Granted, one of them was a little more aggressive, but I didn't see that many setups either. So to walk away green with 3 wins, I'm pretty happy. And I'll probably review the trades against other people, other more seasoned traders on YouTube, just to compare, see if they saw what I saw. So I hope that was helpful.